So when Sly Cooper and the Thievius Racoonus first came out in 2002, it sold well, but didn't really reach the same type of popularity as Jak and Daxter or Ratchet & Clank, since those games were made by already established companies, Naughty Dog and Insomniac Games. But critics definitely loved it, since it was all over magazines, and it was nominated for the best PS2 game that nobody played. I already went into this in the first game, so I'll try not to say all the stuff that I said last time. Sony obviously had faith in the IP because there was a lot of ads for it in PlayStation Magazine, and it was even on the front cover of PlayStation Magazine too, and so rolled up to get the greatest hits label on PS2. And only 2 years later, we got the sequel, Sly 2 Band of Thieves. You know, it was kind of fun and weird how they took the Cooper part out of the title, kind of like how in Jak 2, they took out Daxter's name from the title, and ironically, that's the first game Daxter's playable. And when I first played Sly 2, I didn't really like it that much because I didn't really like the episode setup the game had, and because it felt like the episode was dragging on longer than it should have, and always they had to go back to the hideout whenever I had to do another mission, or when I had to change to another character. I just kind of felt like I was ready to finish part of the level, and it just felt like it was still going. I felt like it was only because I just came off of playing Sly 1, and that game was relatively short, so I was kind of expecting Sly 2 to be the same. I was kind of wondering what my opinion on Sly 2 would be now, because I didn't like Jak 2 when I first played it, and now it's my favorite in the trilogy, so maybe it will be the same story with Sly 2? Anyway, Sly 2 actually started development immediately after the first game was released. They're looking at all the criticism towards the first game, and most of it had to do with the game's short length and it being too restrictive. So the main objective when making this game was one thing and one thing only: Sly and the game come together to pull off this huge Hollywood-type heist, and then at the final third, all the thieves come together to pull off this huge crime.
Okay, fellas, time to pull off the big heist. First, Murray will help me break into the old water tower.
The Murray's ready to go.
Sly, you'll pickpocket the truck keys, then hand them off to me and Murray in the plaza.
Sounds easy enough. What's the catch?
Well, we need someone to coordinate the job for the safe house.
Oh, I'm not really sure how to use your computer.
Not you, Murray. Them.
So, you want to play?
Rated E for everyone.
They noticed how they had great supporting characters, but they didn't have a lot of important roles for them, like having Sly being the leader of the group, Bentley being the brains, and Murray being the brawn. At that point, they wanted to make the players feel like they're a group of thieves and not just one guy doing the job. So they went back and watched a lot of heist movies to really get a good set of the tone and environmental feel, and they went back to the original engine of the first game and took it apart piece by piece and reconstructed it to be more open and feel more like a jungle gym where players can mess around in. I'm sure you guys know this even if you're not a Sly fan, but in the development stage, there was originally going to be a level based in Monaco where Bentley crashed a yacht into a bunch of docks, but the idea was scrapped when the release date was announced. And this game could have either been a success and have Sucker Punch be a well-known and respected developers like Insomniac and Naughty Dog, or it could just completely flop and Sucker Punch would just kind of fade into obscurity. And seeing how the game will just change up structures in only the second game in the series, it easily could have flopped. But Sucker Punch stuck with their plans, and Sly 2 Band of Thieves was released on September 14, 2004, and it was a hit with critical acclaim, and it's the highest rated Sly game on Metacritic. It's always considered to be the best Sly game by critics, and is the fan favorite of the trilogy.
This is our biggest job yet, so we really have to work together, but the whole job is blown if we don't have someone at the controls.
So, are you in?
Rated E for everyone.
Personally, I can't really say that it's the best Sly game, but I can't deny the impact that this game had on series that Thievius Racoonus didn't. And hey, I might not like the greatest hit cover for Sly 1, but the cover for Sly 2 is iconic in its own right. There's actually a giveaway for this game during the week of its release on Toonami, where the winner would get a 42-inch TV, a PS2, and a copy of Sly 2. I'm kind of wondering why Toonami doesn't do those giveaways now, because it would be pretty cool if they did a giveaway with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart in the PS5, because they keep on getting sold out all the goddamn time. And what's with Sly's face here? He looks like great Play-Doh. Anyway, after Band of Thieves, there seems to be a mutual respect among the audience of the PS2, and critics with Sucker Punch, and it looks like Naughty Dog and Insomniac would share that respect too. I might have brought this up in my Ratchet 3 video, but there's actually a demo for Sly 2 in the Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal PS2 disc. It's pretty much like how Crash and Spiral will have demos of one game in the other series, but instead of inputting the Konami codes to access it, you just hold L1, R2, R1, and R2, and you're immediately in the demo. You play through a couple of missions from the first episode, and there's not a lot of differences from this demo and the final game. The only one being that the health bar doesn't have a percentage near in the official release. You can play a demo of Ratchet 3 and Sly 2 in European releases of the game. But hey, even close to 20 years later, that sense of respect is still strong between the three companies, because in Rift Apart, there's cameos of both Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter with the Rhino in that game. I kinda wish that they made a new model for Sly, because using his PS2 model just doesn't really translate well into the PS5. But anyway, this video might be a little bit longer than the last video since Sly 2 is a bigger game than Sly 1. Not only just in gameplay, but in story too. Sly 2 was definitely way more story driven since there's a lot more dialogue in this game. So if you're just a casual player who's just trying to get into Sly, this is not a good starting point. But with all that being said, let's dive into Sly 2 Band of Thieves. So before I start, there's actually a comic called The Adventures of Sly Cooper that takes place in between Thievius, Racoonus, and Band of Thieves. There's 2 issues, with the second issue taking place in between 2 and 3, but I'll talk about issue 2 when we get to Sly 3. Since it's technically canon to the overall plot, I'll just look at it for this video. The story overall is pretty basic. It's all about Dimitri hosting a dinner party and hiring Carmelita as a guard so no one will try to steal anything, but the Cooper gang's here so something's obviously going to get stolen. While pulling off their heist, Sly notices that Dimitri is actually a forger, which gets explained in the game, and once guards tell them that everyone Sly's here, that causes Carmelita to make this face and then start chasing after him. I can already see the main possibilities with this face alone. He and the gang escapes, but Sly decides to confront Carmelita and they start to reminisce about their history together. But after tricking her into grabbing her gun, Sly then escapes with his crew. It could be really easy to label this comic as just another piece of media that isn't really important, but honestly the great writing from the game to really translate well into comics. I think the characters and their interactions with each other really makes this a great read. Sly specifically has a lot of character depth in this one comic alone, because from start to end, Sly's always just thinking about his father and how much he misses him, and he's always quoting him on stuff that he told him when he was younger, and it's honestly kind of heartwarming to see Sly look at memories about him and his dad, and because it goes a little bit more deeper into the respect of his ancestors. You know, now I'm reading this kind of makes me wonder why Sly doesn't do this in the games, like at least in 2 and 3, because it never brings up anything about his dad in the games, or at least I don't remember him saying anything about his dad. It might sound kind of nitpicky, but I just feel like it would have been nice to see some sense of respect for his dad in the games, because, I don't know, I feel like it just kind of gives Sly a little bit of a soft side. There's also a flashback into Sly, Bentley, and Murray's first heist back in the orphanage, stealing a jar of cookies, and you can even get a feel for their dynamic even when they're 8 years old. The final couple of pages are where Sly and Carmelita reminisce about how they first met, and this is where we're starting to get a feeling that Carmelita might be into Sly too when she says stuff like, "Oh, he's obsessed with me," or "Why do all the cute ones go bad?" Again, the dynamic between the two is great. I honestly think that people should read this just once, but good luck trying to get these for cheap, because you're better off just reading them off the fan wiki, unless you actually like pouring your life savings into some comics from 18 years ago, because fuck. So let's get into the actual game. 2 weeks after the events of the first game, Sly and the team break into a museum to find the clockwork pieces and destroy them, but it seems like someone already beat them to it. Carmelita and her new associate, Constable Neela, catch Sly trying to steal clockwork parts, but Neela gives Sly a hint that this might have been the work of the Claw gang, consisting of Dimitri, a nightclub owner who's living in the 70s and can't speak proper English.
What is this with clocks, bro? Have you no vision? Are you hearing what I beam to you? You think you have juice? Don't show me a little mind when talking about such big things. You think you can swing the bat? Show your bling and let me shine you.
I have no idea what you're saying. And your suit sucks.
No! Let's dance!
Rajan, who grew up poor and started selling illegal spices in the black market and eventually making a living off of it. John, who was frozen in the Ice Age and is now living in his own time. And Arpeggio, the leader of the Claw gang, and somehow has facial hair on his beak. After Neela and Carmelita start arguing on whether it's Sly or not, Sly uses that as an opportunity to get away from them. Then him, Murray, and Bentley start running away from Carmelita, who still can't aim for shit by the way. They escape and we get a recap on Sly's origin story, which is kind of pointless since we already went through that in the first game. I mean, it's great for newcomers, but why would newcomers start with the second game? It's like how Mega Man 4 started out the origin and how Mega Man was created. Anyway, the Cooper gang goes to Paris to get the clockwork tail feathers from Dimitri. While doing this, Sly finds out that Neela actually gave out the tip about the Claw gang on purpose because she wanted to help the guys destroy the clockwork parts. After they steal back the tail feathers, Carmelita puts Dimitri out of commission, but now there's no more newspaper headlines when Carmelita busts a member of the Claw gang, like the Phoenix fight in the first game, so no more porn title headlines. Next, the Cooper gang arrive at India to find the clockwork rings from Rajan, and find out that he's hosting a party showing them off, so Bentley comes up with a plan that has Murray hang over the wings, and somehow nobody sees that, and Sly dances with Neela to get Carmelita's attention and distract everyone so Murray can steal the wings. After that, the gang follows Rajan to the jungle since he still has the clockwork cart. Everything goes according to plan until Neela double-crosses them, leaving Sly paralyzed with Murray having to pick up the slack and defeat Rajan and take Clockwork's heart, but Neela rats out the Cooper gang into the Contessa and frames Carmelita for working with Sly and the gang. Sly, Murray, and Carmelita are arrested, and now Bentley's all alone and has to rescue them, but he realizes one thing.
I had to learn how to drive a stick shift.
I mean, even if he could learn how to drive a stick shift, those stubby little legs are touching nothing but air. But anyway, Bentley arrives at Prague and finds out that's where Sly and Murray are being held captive at. And he also finds out the Contessa's true intentions. She's actually a secret member of the Claw gang, and she's actually brainwashing criminals into telling her where their treasures are. God, why can the Contessa be the main villain and Neela be on the sidelines? Because Neela's motives aren't like really explained or even shown, and the Contessa actually has motives, and I actually can see her twist coming. So Anyway, Bentley rescues Sly and they work together to save Murray, who was unfortunately hypnotized by the Contessa, and was fed the spice from Rajan, which was kind of foreshadowed in episode 3.
Now, the local spice plants are illegal for good reason. Eat too many, and you'll go into a fit of uncontrolled rage.
Keep that stuff away from Murray.
They break Murray out of his hypnotized state, and they chase after the Contessa, and she gets away, but the team vows that they will get her. After celebrating getting each other back, they track down the Contessa, and since she was revealed to be a member of the Claw Gang, Neil is promoted to be the captain of Interpol, and scale an all-out war with the Contessa. Since she has clockwork eyes, her hypnotism is even stronger now, and unfortunately, Carmelita is first to be tested with her new hypnosis power. Sly and the gang use conflict to their advantage to save her, and eventually Carmelita is saved, and she goes after the Contessa. But after that, they find one of Clockwork's eyes, but sees that Neela has one of them too, so Sly chases her down, but then Neela gets stuck in one of the spider webs and drops the eye, but then the Contessa confronts Sly. Bentley then shoots out the Contessa's biplanes, but then Carmelita shoots down the blimp and escapes with the eye, with Murray giving chase. Meanwhile, Sly and the Contessa start fighting, with Sly coming out as the winner and getting the eye. But with the police making an arrival and arresting the Contessa, the Cooper gang makes a run for it, and since Carmelita is still a framed officer, she has to, though reluctantly, take help from Sly, Bentley, and Murray. They track down the last member of the Claw Gang, Jean Bijan, in Canada, who has 4 clockwork parts, 2 lungs, a heart, and the talons. He's using them to operate the chains used to ship the spices all around the world. Sly sneaks into Bijan's hideout and overhears a phone conversation with him and Arpeggio, who's asking questions about the Northern Lights battery and if it will be ready when he comes to pick it up, which Jean says that it will. After the Cooper gang sabotages Jean Bijan's trains and makes off with 3 of the clockwork parts, he flees out to a lumber camp where he puts up the talent as a prize in the Lumberjack games. The Cooper gang discovers the Northern Light battery in a camp and modifies it so they can stow away inside it when Arpeggio arrives to pick it up. The gang also attempts to win the talents at the Lumberjack games, but they're caught cheating and captured. Bentley escapes the sawmill control room when the gang's being held captive and confronts Jean Bijan, but before the two start fighting, Bentley learns that Bijan broke into the hideout, found all the clockwork pieces, and sold them to Arpeggio. You guys really should have destroyed the parts beforehand. Why didn't they just destroy them when they got the chance? Anyway, Bentley defeats Jean Bijan, and the Cooper gang hide in the silo where Arpeggio's blimp picks it up, causing a moment of silence between the trio. Then we start the final episode where we found out Arpeggio's backstory. He's just jealous that he can't fly like the other birds out of school even though he was an A student. Wow. Really, that's the best we could have come up with. That's honestly one of the dumbest backstories for a villain I've ever heard. And in a series where a lot of villains have great backstories, this is really underwhelming. Like, even Sly says how stupid that sounds.
I'm truly grateful. When fully powered up, I'll join myself to its circuits and be born anew.
All this because you can't fly. You're pathetic.
Oh, that's almost as stupid as becoming a villain because he got beat up and called weak. I mean, I know that's kind of the whole joke, but the joke wasn't really funny to begin with. And we found that Neil is working with Arpeggio, and he's put Clockwork back together, and his plan is to join body with the Clockwork to make himself immortal. The two reveal their plan to use the Northern Light battery to power a hypnotic light show over Paris, using the hate generated by the hypnotized Parisans who've eaten the food covered in illegal spice served at Dimitri's club. Arpeggio hopes to power Clockwork's body, who has kept itself alive on Clockwork's hatred for Sly's family. I still can't get over how someone's hate for a person can make them immortal. But Neela betrays Arpeggio and kills them, and I'm pretty sure people would be surprised about that, but to be fair, she gives a legitimate reason on why she wouldn't double-cross Arpeggio.
Arlen, my new body awaits me. Be a dear, Neela, and keep him covered. Ta-ta!
Stupid Arpeggio. I double-crossed the Cooper gang, Interpol, and Carmelita. What made you think I wouldn't do the same to you?
Anyway, Neela forms herself with Clockwork and turns herself into Clockla. Anyway, the gang disables the blimp's engine to the weakened Clockla, and Sly teams up with Carmelita to shoot down the bird, and this is followed by the most clever innuendo I've ever heard.
Look, Sly, for once, let's cut the flirty chit-chat and get down to business. I need an experienced tail gunner. Jump in and grab the gun. We've got a bird to take down.
That's not flirty chit-chat?
But after shooting the bird down, Clockla flies into the blimp and takes Bentley and Murray hostage, who are inside the battery that served as a safe house and causes the blimp to explode. Clockla crash lands into Paris, and Bentley removes the hate chip from Clockla, but her beast shuts on Bentley, severely hurting him. Carmelita destroys that hate chip, and in doing so, all the Clockwork pieces disappear and removes the curse on the Cooper family. She tries to arrest Sly in the gang, but seeing Murray and Bentley weren't really in shape to make a getaway, Sly turns himself in and gets Carmelita promoted. Sly and Carmelita board a helicopter and have a casual talk about their interests, but after noticing that the pilot was going in circles for the entire ride, Carmelita asked the pilot what's taking so long, only to find out that Murray and Bentley somehow sabotaged the plane and to make it fly in circles, which gives Sly a chance to escape, with Carmelita coming in with her smooth-ass lip movements saying that she'll see him again. God damn, it looks so good. And during the credits, shows what the villains did after the game ended. Dimitri becomes a dance instructor on a cruise ship, Rajon became a rug and carpet merchant, the Contessa becomes a successful real estate broker, using her hypnosis on her buyers, and Jean-Baptiste started working for the EPA, only to get frozen in ice again while trying to save baby penguins. I know Sly 1 kinda took the structure of Crash Bandicoot, but this is really similar to the ending of the first Crash game where it shows what all the bad guys did at the end of the game. You're hitting a little bit too much close to home, Sucker Punch. So, there's the plot. Like, I know people consider this plot of the game to be the best in the series, and to be honest, I think that the storyline is a lot more better than the first game, but there's just a lot of stuff in here that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but there's also a lot of things but at the same time, there's also a lot of stuff that I like too, so I guess it kind of balances out. Now, there's a lot that I love about this game's story. To start, in contrast to the last game where you start from a tragedy and have a happy ending, when in this game, everything starts off pretty good, then goes downhill in the middle part, and completely goes to shit in the end, with Bentley getting paralyzed and Murray blaming himself for not getting him out in time. And it all really hits the three main characters pretty hard, Sly because knowing that his goal of trying to destroy the clockwork parts are the reason why him and his friends are in this situation in the first place, really makes him feel guilty and is one of the main reasons why he turned himself in on purpose. And like I said, Murray being disappointing himself for not saving Bentley in time, and spoilers, in the third game, he gives up fighting for good and because of how he personally blames himself for Bentley getting hurt. Speaking of the other characters, I love how there's a lot more of an arc for Murray and Bentley, especially Bentley. Episode 4 is definitely my favorite episode in this game because once Sly and Murray get arrested by Interpol, you really see how alone he is, and you really feel for the guy too, and once he rescues Sly and Murray, he gets a huge confidence boost. I mean, look at this cutscene.
It was great! The gang had been reunited and it was all because of me! Even the van ride out of town was like a party. Murray had to pull over twice because he was laughing so hard. But despite all the jokes, I think something had changed. Since childhood, the three of us had never been apart, and our recent isolation gave us all pause for thought. Needless to say, we took a few weeks off before getting back to work. And for the first time in my life, Murray let me drive.
And he even gets the confidence thing on Jean-Baptiste by himself, which is personally my favorite boss fight in the game. Even then, in the first episode of the game, even when Bentley's in the field, he's not too confident, but after blowing up the bridge in episode 3 and getting Murray and Sly back in episode 4, he really feels like he accomplished something. This is a huge contrast to the guy in the chair who was in the first game, and it's all the more sad when he gets paralyzed because of how far he came. Murray has so much better characterization here than he did in the first game. Oh, I'm sorry, the Murray, that's what he calls himself. Anyway, instead of cowering himself in fear whenever a guard gets close to him, or as my friend Josh says, trying to be a Thievius hippopotamus, he finally puts his strength into good use and becomes the brawn of the team. And it's definitely gotten a lot braver since the last game, which was a huge far cry from the wannabe Sly he was in the first game. I'm sure some people will say that his new confidence boost just came out of nowhere, and I can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, I don't really think that's the case, because listen to this line at the end of Thievius Racoonus.
Murray, boy, it took a lot of guts for him to get out in the field with me. I know he was scared, but he's got more heart than anyone I've ever known.
It's a great art. I just wish that Murray got a lot more screen time in the first game because, again, I forgot that he was in the first game, but yeah, he's a lot more better in this game. It even goes on to fight Rajon by himself in a kind of annoying boss fight. And after getting out of his hypnosis from the Contessa, he feels like he's really overcome something and even has a one-on-one argument with her.
You lousy, no good head shrinker!
Oh, come now, Murray. We were making such progress during our sessions.
The only mental help that I need is to never be reminded of you again.
Such displaced hostility.
And again, it's all the more sad when he puts up his costume carries to paralyze Bentley. Murray was the one who lifted up the beak and now he's disappointed with himself because he didn't pry it open wide enough for Bentley to escape in time. But to be fair, Bentley had more than enough time to just leap out the mouth before it crippled him, so Murray shouldn't really blame himself to the point of him just giving up. Bentley is partially to blame for his spine getting crushed. I'm sorry to ruin the moment like that, I just thought I should bring that up. Speaking of characters with great development, Carmelita. Now in the first game, it was pretty obvious that she fucking hated Sly because she was always chasing him and saying that he's just like any other criminal, but after getting saved by him, she starts to see that he's not just a one-note thief and has a good heart, and in the second game, as she's escaping with Sly and his friends, the two of them start to develop a mutual respect for each other, and that's the perfect arc for those two characters, and you can tell that she's starting to catch feelings for Sly in this game. It's hinted at a little in the comic, but the banter between the two in this game isn't really entertaining too, especially in the scene where Sly starts dancing with Carmelita. And okay, I'm pretty sure everyone else has already made this joke before, but I just want to say this. How does Carmelita not recognize that she's dancing with Sly? Like, it's not like he's in a clever disguise too. He's just wearing a tuxedo and took off his hat. It wouldn't really bother me as much if she already didn't see Sly like 15 times. Like, she should know what she looks like at this point. I mean, maybe if he took off his mask too, I could understand that. But I don't know. It just kind of makes Carmelita look like an idiot. Like, it's like if I just tried on putting on glasses and try to trick my friends into thinking that I'm a completely different person. And it was always up to the ending of her and Sly just casually conversating. And it was a great way to end off this game. And it was a good way to set up the third game too. And I can honestly say that it's my favorite ending in the series. Now, Sly's character in this game is a lot less cocky than he was in the first game, and again, the dialogue between him and his friends are always funny, and it's even better since there's more animated cutscenes in this game than in the first. Out of all the characters in this game, Sly's probably the only character that doesn't get as much of an arc as he did in the first game. Not to say that he has no personality in this game, because the common collected smartass with a good heart persona is still there, but it kind of feels like Sly's character has been taking a little bit of a backseat from Murray and Bentley to get some more time in the spotlight, which does kind of sound bad, but since Sly was the focus of the first game, meanwhile Bentley was just guiding Sly on where you have to go and what you have to do to pull off some things, and he still does that here, but he's actually doing something in the field, and Murray just does whatever he feels like and gets killed by explosives. So I think Sly not getting any development in this game was a good compromise to me. And honestly, since everyone else is involved now, rather than just Sly doing all the heavy lifting, you really start getting a feeling that this is actually a team of thieves and not just one person doing all the thief shit. They all share a role in their plans, and they also go out of their way to look out and care for one another, and their respect for each member of the Cooper Gang grows more and more as the game goes on. With the dialogue and writing in this game, you can see that these guys are really great friends and have been since childhood. With the first, the banter between Sly and Bentley were hilarious, but it doesn't really feel like that they were good friends. They just talk to each other more like work associates. Here, they're a lot nicer to each other, and while there's an occasional teasing, you can still see that they have a lot of respect for each other.
Good job, little buddy. That was some fast thinking.
Don't forget about me!
You did a great job opening that door, Murray.
Thanks!
I said that one of my favorite scenes in the game was when Bentley saved the rest of the gang by himself, because it took a moment for them to realize that this was the first time that they've been alone for years since they were children, so it made them take missions a lot more seriously after that. I also love when Sly and Bentley see Murray in a spy state. They sound genuinely worried about him.
Oh, that looks bad. I've never seen Murray like this.
He's all twitchy and bug-eyed.
Like, something about that scene just really makes me feel bad for Murray since he's never been like this before. But another one of my favorite scenes is when they're being taken away at the end of episode 7, when Sly, Bentley, and Murray just not talking to each other for a while. But also brings up a major problem in this story that really bothers me. Sly and the gang knew how dangerous these clockwork parts can be, so why didn't they just destroy the pieces one by one every time they got one instead of just leaving them in a safe house? That way Jean-Baptiste selling them to Arpeggio could have been easily avoided. It just seems so stupid on their part, because instead of just taking selfies with the pieces, it would have made more sense to just destroy the pieces now and then destroy the rest of them as they go on. It just would have been so easy if they just did that and the parts would have gotten sold. And it really sucks that I feel that way too, because when the game has moments like this...
As we shut ourselves into the Northern Light battery, it became black. For a few long minutes, we just sat there in darkness. No one dared to talk for fear that Jean-Bassan's men might discover where we were hiding. Time seemed to have stopped. And then, we felt it. We were being lifted up to Arpeggio's blimp. It was all so strange. The focus of all our schemes had been stolen from us. Our clockwork parts were gone. Looking around the inside of the battery, I knew we all felt it. Failure. I was twitchy and ready for action. Any action. Bentley tried to make some sense of the situation by drawing up meaningless plans. But Murray took it the worst. He just sat there sobbing while the team van floated away over the horizon. That van was his life. I knew I'd have to find a way to make it up to him.
Like, I really want to feel for these guys, because I really get a sense of the failure that they're feeling, but instead of just thinking, damn guys, I feel so bad for you, I just think, oh wow, maybe you guys destroyed the pieces, or at least put them in a place where Bassan couldn't have found them. You guys wouldn't have anything to feel bad about in the first place, you dumbasses! It just feels like flimsy writing, but I don't think that's the only part of Sly's 2 story that feels a little bit rough to me. So about the villains, let's talk about Neela first. I hear people saying how much of a great twist villain Neela was, but I'm sorry, I just don't see it. Like, I feel like the reason why I don't really think that she's an amazing villain is the fact that we never really find out what her motives are. Why she felt like double-crossing the Cooper Gang or Carmelita, or why she wanted to fuse the Clockwork herself. It's all never explained, and I feel like that's probably the one thing you should do with her villain. Explain their motives. But Neela just doesn't really have a reason to do the things that she does. Like, do you honestly mean to tell me that Neela came up with the plan to work with Interpol, double-cross Carmelita so she can be promoted to a leader and start a war with the Contessa, and work with the Claw Gang, and then kill Arpeggio and then become Clockla just to be a bitch? What sense does that make? In a series where every villain has a backstory to explain why they're the way they are, Neela just doesn't have one. I might not like Arpeggio's backstory, but it was still a backstory. Plus, I don't really think she was a well-written twist villain either. From the beginning, you can tell that she was up to something, from the Claw Gang clue that she gave Sly, and from when she couldn't legally enter places but could let Sly do the same. Like, where's the logic in that? Legally, I, a policewoman, can't enter this area without a warrant, but I can let you, Sly, a thief, do the exact same thing, no problem. I just don't get it. And I also don't get why Sly was so quick to trust her after just cluing him into the Claw Gang and taking the Clockwork pieces. It just kind of feels weird how he was easily manipulated by her and led himself into getting betrayed by her. And while I'm on that, why does Carmelita still expect Sly to steal the Clockwork pieces already? Like, I know he has the motive to do so, but part of her arc in the first game was learning that Sly is more than a thief, and it just kind of feels like they just threw that away just to have Neela make her presence known. I mean, I know she's dedicated to her job, but she's not an idiot. I mean, to be fair, writing a twist villain is really hard to do without making it glaringly obvious that they're the bad guy. But there's still some villains that can pull it off, like Core from Jak 2, for example. I feel like why he's a great villain is because there's subtle hints in that game that allude to Core being bad, but it's never really bashed on your head though, making it a genuine surprise when he's revealed to be the metalhead leader. Too bad they couldn't do the same with Mizo and Jak X. In this game, the hints aren't even that subtle. Even on my first playthrough, I just knew that there was something up with her. I honestly feel like the Contessa would have made a better twist villain character, because she actually has a backstory, and unlike Arpeggio, she actually has a good one too. She married a rich man, but it's implied that she poisoned him and killed him. After that, she opened up a rehabilitation clinic for criminals. Plus, I actually didn't see her twist coming, so I already think that she's a better written villain than either Neela or Arpeggio. And also kind of think that the Claw Gang is a weaker group of villains than the Fiendish 5 from the last game. It's a little bit underwhelming going from the people who killed Sly's family in the first game to just, what do they do? They sell spice. That's all they do. That's literally it. That's all they do. And there's also not a lot of communication between the gang, which was kind of a problem with the Fiendish 5 too. But there's not even acknowledgement of each team member in this game. I know that I said it made no sense for the Fiendish 5 to just rat out each other, but I felt like there was a little bit more teamwork between them. Plus, the Claw Gang didn't even know that they were doing something that contributed to something bigger. And besides Dimitri and the Contessa, I don't really think that the rest of the gang are that interesting. Rajon's episodes kind of felt like they were dragging on and didn't really make a lot of progress in the story, and Jean Besson is just a typical strong, tough guy's character, and you guys already know what I think about Arpeggio. I feel like they could have done a lot more with these guys. I guess they're not too bad, they're just kind of a step down in terms of villains. At least the voice acting in this game is just as good, maybe even better than the last game. Kevin Miller does another great performance, and even has a little bit more emotion in his voice than he does in the first. Matt Olson as Bentley not only starts out better this time.
Breaker Alpha Foxtrot, this is the Wizard. Do you read me, Sitting Duck?
This is Peking Duck. I hear you, Blizzard.
No, Sly, I'm the Wizard, and you're Sitting Duck.
I read you loud and clear, Lizard.
No, I'm... Forget it, you're not taking this seriously.
Yeah, I'm not.
But also does a great job capturing his development throughout the game. And Chris Murphy as Murray is great too. He even does a deeper voice for the character to show his newfound confidence.
Murray, what are you doing down there?
Well, I'm minding my post when I notice a snow cone stand, and I think to myself, hey Murray, you gotta keep your energy up. Greetings, citizen. I hope you weren't harmed by my meteoropic entrance.
No, Murray, I kept at a safe distance.
Good, good. The Thunderflop knows neither friend nor foe, only destruction.
Like I said last time, Carmelita gets a new voice in this game. In the first game it was Roxanne Ortega, and she was decent, but she sounded kind of emotionless at times. Now it's Alicia Kaleido, and I think she's a little bit better than the first actor because she sounds a lot more natural and has a little bit more emotion in her performance of Roxanne. But what happened to her Latina accent?
You foolish raccoon. I've caught you red-handed.
Ah, Carmelita. I haven't seen you since I gave you the slip in Bombay.
Which reminds me, you need to return the Firestone of India to its rightful owners.
Oh, really? Then who broke in last night and made off with all the clockwork parts? You've got the motive.
I mean, it's not bad. I just kind of found it weird how they just gave her an American accent, and the way she says ringtail doesn't really have as much of an impact as the last actor.
Don't worry, Ringtail. I'll cover you while you get it back.
I'll be seeing you soon, Ringtail.
She's definitely the best actor for Carmelita thus far, and she definitely has range in her voice since she voices both Carmelita and Neela, but what the fuck kind of accent is she trying to do with Neela?
Thanks for clearing out the Contessa. Nothing I did could pry her away from the clockwork eyes. Wouldn't she be enough for the old bird? Ta-ta!
It sounds like she's trying to do a British and a New Zealand accent all at the same time, and it kind of makes her delivery sound kind of off, but I guess if she used her normal voice, it would just sound too similar to Carmelita. The other actors do a great job in this game, with Gloria Manon doing a great job as Contessa, and there's another reason why she's a great character too, because she sounds really sophisticated, but also has some funny moments too. So yeah, my problem with the first game story was that there wasn't a lot going on in the middle, and while Band of Thieves fixes that, it also causes some problems in the story at the same time too. At least the cutscenes are great to look at. The only problem I have with them is that they're unskippable, which doesn't really sound bad on your first playthrough, but on multiple playthroughs, or if you keep on failing a mission, it's gonna get annoying. To end off this section, I don't hate the story in 2, I just don't like how some events are executed, if that makes any sense. So, if you're still watching this or just skip to this part of the video, then, hey, sorry that this part took up like 3/3 of the video, so let's get into the main gameplay aspect of this game. So this game is pretty different from the first game. Alright, it's not like a massive difference though. It's not like going from Precursor Legacy to Jak 2, but it kind of ditches the level by level progression from Sly 1 and replaces it with bigger hubs with a mission structure to it. Band of Thieves is a lot more open than the last game. The only time where it's like the first game is where you're going into miniature sized levels inside the hub. The game is separated into episodes now and has missions for you to do inside of them. Some missions either have you doing stuff like taking pictures of your target, collecting or destroying amount of objects, or doing something in the hub that affects what happens in the story. I didn't really like the episode structure when I first played this game. I didn't really like how different it was from the first game, and that's probably my fault for going from Sly 1 straight to Sly 2, but playing it now, I've grown to like it a lot more. But I do think that episodes 2 and 3 go on a lot longer than they should, because Rajan doesn't really carry 2 episodes like the Contessa and Jean Bisson can. The worlds aren't too big for me, but some of them can be really hard to navigate, like in episode 3, because of how we're just moving on vines everywhere, and episode 8 because of how massive it is. I guess episode 5 and 7 can be annoying too. Episode 5 because of how in the second half, some of the missions can get really tedious, like taking pictures of these ghosts because they're all spaced out everywhere, and it gets really draining searching for them all, and then there's this goddamn taking mission, but more on that later. And episode 7 because of this laser puzzle you have to do to unfreeze this mammoth just to get frozen in ice again. But other than that, episodes 1, 4, half of 5, and 6 flew by me fast. Recording sessions didn't really go longer than they should have for those episodes. The mission structure is alright, and I just wish that when you're done with the mission, you spawn right back to the safe house and walk all the way back just to do another mission. But there's now a safe house for coming up plans, purchasing power-ups, and yes, switching characters. So now you can play as Sly, Bentley, and Murray. Sly controls so much better than he did before, which is pretty impressive since he was already fun to play as in the first game. He's a lot more agile and acrobatic because he can do backflips, front flips, side flips, and it all makes avoiding lasers just as satisfying as it was in the first game. He can also do all the stuff that he could do in the last game: spiral jump, rail rock, rail grind, climb, swing on hooks. It's all here. I just wish that the blue sparkles weren't so close to each other sometimes, because a lot of times whenever I try spiral jumping, Sly would either just rail grind or start climbing again, and it's really irritating when it happens. Sly has a paraglider that he uses at the end of the game, and it's pretty fun to use after jumping off high ledges. He can also do his flame spin attack that does a lot of damage to the smaller enemies and is really helpful for when you're surrounded by a group of guards. Sly can also sneak inside of air vents and under tables to reach new areas or avoid getting caught. Other than that, Sly is pretty fun to control. Next is Murray. He's basically the powerhouse character, and goddamn, he's pretty good at his job when he's not driving a Cooper van or hiding from guards in plain sight or just getting killed by bullets. He's out in the field beating the shit out of people. He can take out guards in 2 hits, body slam, pick up and throw things, and he can even throw guards too, but because of his big frame, he can't really sneak around. I mean, he can sneak around, but... yeah. I mean, for a hippo, he's still pretty athletic. Like, he can backflip just like Sly, even though he has a small jump. And he can still jump on rooftops too. Wow, this guy can just climb on top of houses like it's nothing. Meanwhile, I can barely get my ass out of bed. That just leaves us with Bentley. Stealth is more prominent with him since he does most of his work from afar. He can shoot darts into enemies in his Banaki-com and they fall asleep. Then he can place an active bomb on their unconscious body, and after the countdown reaches 0, the bomb blows up, killing the guard, and it blows up objects too. He's personally my favorite character to play as because it really feels tactical and it feels like it actually needs strategy. But since he does combat from far away, he's also the weakest of the crew since he doesn't have the strength of Murray or the agility of Sly, even though he's a little bit more agile than Murray though. Overall, Murray and Bentley are fun to play as. I just wish you play as them more because 75% of the game you're just playing as Sly and the other 25% you're playing as Bentley and Murray. But I guess that's a good thing too because navigating through hub worlds in Sly 2 as Bentley and Murray can be pretty tedious. I mean, it's not terrible in most levels, but it's really monotonous in episodes 8 and especially 3. Hubs and Bandit Thieves are designed mostly for Sly to get around, but with Murray and Bentley, you're going to be circling around the level for minutes on end, and it's even worse when you have to get somewhere that's far, and it doesn't really help that some of these missions are the fucking pits, man. This bug mission in episode 3, you're supposed to place this bug inside of Rajan's office, and it would be easy enough if the bug wasn't so loud that it alerted the guards all around them and they start beating the shit out of you when they spot you. I spent at least 45 minutes on this one mission, and I almost felt like breaking my controller in two after all this. In the last mission in episode 8, where you have to jump on top of very tall towers, and since episode 8's map is huge, it gets really tedious going from one tower to another, and if you die at any point, you have to start from the beginning, which no other mission did that before, so why start now? And then there's that tank, which is the most confusing ever. Both analog sticks to go forward, both to go back, and both to move left and right. This was so awkward, and it never works, and it makes missions drag on longer than it should, because I can never turn the tank around in time. It's like they're trying so hard to make it feel as realistic as possible, but it just doesn't work. I don't want to get into all the missions right now, so let's talk about stealth here. So compare the Thievius Racoonus, Bandit Thieves is a lot more stealth heavy than the last game, where the first game was more stealth themed than a full-on stealth game. One of the biggest changes start from the first time you boot up the game. So when I was playing the demo for this video, I noticed that Sly isn't running at full speed, he just kind of... What do you call this? A prance? Tiptoeing? Speed walking? I just thought, okay, that's probably because it's a demo and doesn't really represent the finished game. But when I play the finished game, he still doesn't run at full speed, and now I was thinking, okay, what's going on? Why is he still walking? Then when I accidentally pressed the R1 button, I noticed how Sly kinda did a sprint, and that's when I remember that Sly has a run button in this game. Like, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of weird how the game doesn't really tell you anything about it. I mean, Bentley tells you about it, but it isn't until you get into the first episode when you're told you have a run button. But at the same time, I think it's pretty cool since it gives a little bit more depth to the stealth. So Sucker Punch noticed that the guards in the first game were pretty stupid, and now they're a lot more smarter, and it's way easier to get caught by these guys. But now when you get close to guards, you can see your health meter start flashing when you're going around them, and it starts to flashing red when you're caught. Alright, it's serious rocking Metal Gear Solid elements now. Anyway, yeah, Sly and the gang have a health meter now, no more one-hit KOs, and you can now take up to 4 to 5 hits before dying. Enemies also take longer to kill too. With Sly's cane, they take about like 5 swings before knocking them out, but combat is strongly discouraged, and it's a better option to just run and not just fight them head on, because some of these guys can seriously wreck your shit, especially the bigger guys. They just won't let up. The smaller enemies can call out other guards, and a group of guards will start following you, and they won't stop until you're dead, or until you completely avoid them. The guards with flashlights aren't bad to avoid because they have big ass flashlights, so you know not to get in the flashlights. But the one without flashlights can be really annoying, because you can think that you've gotten past them, but the moment they see you, you're fucked. I just kinda wish the whistle sound from the first game would play here whenever you got caught, since this game is more stealth themed, it would make more sense to have it here. With Sly and especially Bentley, it's better to just run away as fast as you can until they can't find you. With Murray, I don't think it would be as bad at fighting them since you can just kill guards in 2 hits. Yeah, even the big guys too. Bentley can't kill guards fast enough with his default melee combat, and Sly can't kill them in 2 hits either. But this can though. Yeah, Sly can do a silent takedown, and all they have to do is just punch them up in the air and then slam them back down, and all it takes is just 2 buttons. See, that's how you do a Secret Agent Clank, you and your stupid ass QTEs. It's not perfect because you can still alert the guards if you do it close to them. Running definitely makes it fast navigating through hub worlds. The other characters can do it too, but it's not recommended to do it all the time. Oh my god. What if with Bentley's running animation? You shouldn't run all the time so you can alert guards while doing it, but it's still a pretty good... I don't know why I find that so funny. I forgot to bring this up in the last video, but you can press R3 and to break up the Binoculon to have an easier time looking for areas or looking for the clue bottles and... Don't worry, we'll get to those later. The conversation of the Binoculons are only relocated to Bentley or Sly when Bentley's doing the action, giving you instructions for what to do like in the first game. The only difference being that you can move the characters' heads while they're having conversations. Alright, I can be really nitpicky here and just say that Sly 2 is shit because you can't bobble their heads, but why would you take that out in the first place? That was like one of my favorite things to do in the last game. It doesn't really affect gameplay, but I just love being able to do that. But I guess the Binoculon, the UI looks better than the first game, but you just can't beat the original. Anyway, when you're behind guards, you can also pickpocket them for money and for any type of item that you can sell on ThiefNet. You can also find items somewhere in the overworld and take them back to the safe house without getting caught. Since coins don't really count for extra hit points or extra lives anymore, you can sell them on the dark web to get power-ups for Sly, Bentley, and Murray. I think that this is a great way to encourage players to explore the hub world a lot more and collect more coins and items. I've always been the type of person to pickpocket any guard that's around me for any money or shit that I can sell on ThiefNet. The items in the overworld can be sold for more money, but I just aim for the small items and let them all build up. I only ever use power-ups for Sly, but I really do like the Flame Fist that Murray has, since I can just one-shot guards. And its new song for Bentley is really useful too when you're surrounded by a group of guards. Sly's upgrades are definitely the most useful. My favorite is on a knockout dive that just stuns guards when you dive bomb onto them. The upgrade is Silent Takedown, which just makes guards face through the ground now, okay? Now I can just snowboard on a solid ground with a stealth slide and just slide everywhere, and with the right terrain, you can get a lot of speed with it. There's also the combat slide, and if you're good enough, you can do a counter attack when the enemy's about to strike. Overall, the power-ups are a lot more useful than they were in the first game. Now, you can't play through the entire game without getting any of the power-ups because, again, I don't really think that Band of Thieves is any harder than the last game. I mean, the last third of this game can be pretty annoying, but that's more because the missions aren't really designed well and not because of the game being actually difficult. Now, let's talk about the different mission types. So, I hated these in the first game, and they're not any better here. Some of them aren't bad, like the things that you have to do in the Lumberjack Olympics to get the talent from Jean Besson, like log chopping, ice climbing, and log rolling, the last one being my favorite. And I don't really mind doing all the stuff you have to do to try to distract Besson, except for this one, because not only it doesn't make any sense how nobody sees this, but because of how inaccurate this grappling hook is. Every time I miss Jean Besson or the hook just bounces off, I just feel like punching something. I also like the dancing missions with Neela and Carmelita because it's just a rhythm minigame, and I also thought it was a nice moment between Sly and Carmelita. The grappling hook is alright, but it can be a little bit annoying. And the RC tank combat was decent, but some of the missions are just boring or straight up awful. I already mentioned the tank, but there's also this one mission with Sly where you have to walk in his barrel, and it should be easy, but it just drags on and on and on. Wait, that wasn't even my fault! There's the turret sections that are used in the dam mission and the final boss, and the latter makes the boss worse than the one in the first game, but we're not at the bosses yet. You have to blow up this dam, which would be easy if you didn't have planes shooting at you all the time. And this just made that mission drag on because you have to worry about both shooting the dam and the planes shooting at you. Then there's the RC copter with Bentley, and the controls are so loose, you can't stop so you can only move left or right, and it's so inaccurate too. You do get an upgrade for it so you can shoot with the square button, but it doesn't really make the boss fight with Neela in episode 6 any fun. And it's even more annoying when it takes me like 68 bullets to do a single scratch on her, but this bitch can just take a third of my health with one attack. I know people would just say, well, that would make the fight too easy. Well, fuck that point. If I'm not having fun, then I'm not having fun. Finally, there's the hacking minigames with Bentley, and they're not bad, but they're just so goddamn boring. All you do is just shoot stuff, and then you do that 2 other times. It's just really boring with barely anything going on. I'm not sure if this is a hot take or anything, but I honestly feel like the different minigames in this game is honestly even worse here than it was in the first game, because it kind of does go along with the whole theme of stuff in this series, but most of them are just not fun, boring, or just kind of there. Yeah, my thoughts with these different minigames can just be aligned with my thoughts with the first game's different minigames, where I just said Sly 1 shines the best in its core platforming. And I think with Band of Thieves, it's the same story here, even if I don't like the elements of this game that much. I'd rather just play as Sly, Bentley, and Murray the whole game with little to no gimmicks. One minigame every now and then would be just fine. I'm not sure where I should put this in the video, but I might as well just say right now. Some copies of Sly 2 came with a USB headset where you can plug into your PS2, activate it in the menu, and then use it to call out guards. I don't have this, and I personally don't plan on getting one, but I have heard that it still works pretty well, and that's honestly pretty impressive for something that's over 20 years old. And also, any binocular conversations from Bentley and anyone else will come out of the microphone too, so I guess that's pretty cool too. But now that just leaves us with the clue bottles. So I spent the last video talking about how great the clue bottles were and how they complement the level design. I hear a lot of mixed reception with these. Some people think that they help you know the ins and outs of the hub and encourage a lot of exploration, and I would be able to appreciate that if I wasn't spending half an hour going
forward and back, and then forward and back, and then go forward and back, then put 1 foot forward.
Seriously, this is the only reason why I don't like collecting these things anymore. They were great in the first game because in the confined space, it was fun to look for them because they were well hidden, but not to the point of them being impossible to find. But here, since Sly 2 was a bigger game, it's just really tedious. Especially when you got every single bottle in the level and you're spending 45 minutes just looking for that last bottle only to find out that it was in the most obvious place possible. Like no joke, in episode 8, it took me an hour to look for this one clue bottle, and it wasn't the one place I should have known that it was at. The page in the Thievius Racoonus where you can locate all the missing bottles with a binocular would have made a lot of these left foot struggle, but for some reason they're just not there, and I don't get why. Like, you'd think something like that would be one of the first things to add when putting collectibles in a game like this. Open world games just aren't well designed to have stuff like this to find. It was really tempting to just look up a guide for some of these levels because it was just really obnoxious, but I did it. I got every single clue bottle in this game, and now I can say that I've 100% completed Slide 2 for as little as what that means. All you get when you collect them all is just another behind the scene feature, and it's pretty cool, but all the shit that you go through just to watch it, it just isn't worth it. Especially, again, if you just watch it all on YouTube. At least there aren't any Master Thief sprints in this game, and the power-ups you unlock are pretty great too. My favorite is being the voltage attack and the lightning spin because both of them you can just one-shot guards, so when you get caught, all you have to do is just activate the voltage on your cane and just swing and then you're good. The spin attack is pretty good too if you want to get double or triple kills. I also really like the music boss because you can just throw it near your guards and they fall asleep and you can just knock their asses out. My only problem with these is that when I got them, I already fully completed the game, so I really couldn't get the most out of these powers. Now what's left is the boss fights. Dimitri is a great boss to start off the game, not too hard but not too easy either. Rajan was a good boss fight for Murray. I just like how you can just throw his minions at him, but it's a little bit annoying when I pick him or anyone else up. Rajan or the other minions just slam you back down on the ground, but it's kind of funny to look at the first time. Jump-a-Son's actually my favorite boss in the game because you don't actually fight him as Bentley, but instead you just lure him into traps, and it's all really fun. I always like boss fights where you don't actually fight them and you just leave them in the stage hazards, but at the same time, I know that most bosses who do this are the big, dumb, strong, tough guys, but they can't be dumb enough to just run through a wall of fire just to kill the hero. Do they not take a second to think, fire burns me, so maybe I should have run straight through it? Alright, that's a little nitpick. It's still a fun boss. Next we have the Contessa, and like it's an okay fight, but it's just kind of easy. It's just wait for her to attack, then find an opening, wait for her to attack, find an opening, wait for her to attack, then find an opening. You just do that for the whole fight until you win. I could easily say that the Contessa is the weakest boss fight in the game, but that label goes to the Clockla boss fight. Besides having the stupidest name for a villain I've ever heard, but this boss is honestly worse than the final boss in the first game because of all the stuff you have to shoot down all at once, and that goddamn aura around her that just shoots out a huge power shot, which the game doesn't really give you any indication that you have to shoot at her eyes to deactivate that. And to top it off, you have Carmelita on your ass every time you miss or get hit by Clockla. What is it with video game characters always getting mad at you for not doing something when you're trying to do the thing that they're getting mad at you at? I mean, it's probably helpful for first-time players, but it's just fucking irritating on repeated playthroughs. Overall, the boss fights in this game are good. The graphics and presentation is so much better than before, and I already thought that the first game looked pretty good, but I think Slide 2 looks a lot better in terms of the graphical art style. First game kinda had a more of a cartoonish, cel-shaded look to the levels, and while the levels were based on real-life locations, the game itself had an animated movie style, which is what the developers were going for. But in Band of Thieves, there's a lot more of a realistic feel to this world, and while some of them can look similar to the first game, Slide 2 just has a more grounded look to its world, and it's all great to look at because of how detailed it all is. And since this game is bigger than Thievius Racoonus, it just shows off the PS2's capabilities. I can't really choose if I think this game looks better or if Honor Among Thieves does. This game does have a little bit of pop in, like how when you get closer to some areas, some more details start to pop out, but it's only when you zoom in and out of the binoculum, but maybe it happens more in the normal gameplay and I just haven't noticed. I also really love how even when the game goes for a more realistic art style, they still keep aspects of an old cartoon, like how whenever you take out guards, the automatopoeias pop out. That's great attention to detail. Character models, especially Sly's, look so much better, and I probably should have brought this up in the first game, but Carmelita's model in that game was kind of motionless because she just kind of flapped her lips and doesn't really make any other facial expressions. It's just the same model for talking. Now she makes more facial expressions. Her model is a lot more smoother too. I also really like Sly's model too because his facial expressions actually look more natural, and you can tell when he's in over his head and when he's mad or when he's sad. I always like the comic style that the sequels went for because it looked more faithful to the original artist sketches of the characters. But the animations can look a little bit janky since they keep on repeating the same hand and blip motions, and for some reason in the binoculum conversations, Sly's hat just kind of fades in and out of existence. But it's something that you get used to the more you play the game. At least Sly doesn't look like he has lockjaw anymore. The game still has a great intro where they animated Sly, Bentley, and Murray in a silhouette, but they took that out in the HD collection again. Why do they keep doing that? Also, does anyone else find it kind of weird how they showed an entire cutscene of the gang just running across the rooftops like the first game, even though that's most of what you're doing in this game? While I'm still on the graphics, I forgot to bring this up in the last video, but in the beginning and ending of each level, there's little animated cutscenes that tell the story. They look good, but the ones in this game look so much better since they're directed by, and I'm sorry if I messed his name up, Travis Kosubi, and he really did a good job here. He even fixed some inconsistencies in the first game's animatics that I didn't even noticed until someone else pointed it out. Like how Sly has yellow gloves and black shoes when in gameplay, he has blue gloves and shoes, with the wristlets being yellow. I always loved how these look when I was younger, and also really loved the menu screen while you're navigating through these game's episodes, but at the same time, I'm a little bit sad that he got rid of the ones in the first game, because they had a little more personality, but at least here when you start every mission, this cutscene plays. So many aspects of the series have just been made so much better than before. The soundtrack in this game is so much better than the last game. It has a lot of that DV vibe to it like the last game, and the main theme is pretty great too, but I just kind of wish that they made an original song for this game's credits and not use the main theme again. And here's a fun fact, when you start the game off, the main theme starts off pretty basic. But then when you progress more into the story, more instruments start playing to accommodate for the darker tone that the story gets into. Off the top of my head, I don't really think I've played a game that does something like that, so good on you, Sucker Punch. Since the soundtrack is supposed to emulate the country that they're set in, it does a really good job of making this game really diverse. The sounds of this game are really great too. While there's not any more dynamic music when you're sneaking around anymore, and I do miss that, but the footstep sounds are great, and the sounds that clue balls make when you get them, they sound really smooth. The sound design in this game is great overall, and the soundtrack is pretty good too. So that's it. So that's Sly 2 Band of Thieves. What people will say is the best Sly game and one of the best PS2 games. And I mean, like, the game's definitely grown on me a lot since I first played it. Like, I don't feel like I waste my time while playing this game, but I can't really say that it's for everyone. I feel like with Sly 2, it can be a little bit hard for people who are really into the first game to just get into the sequel, because it completely drops what was established in the first game, and it requires a lot from the players, and it's probably why I didn't really like the game the first time I played it, because I thought it was going to be exactly like the first game, but I realized that the levels are longer than it was in the last game. I know you can make the same argument with Jak 2 and that game's difficulty spike and how it changed up the formula and might be off-putting to anyone who would really love the precursor legacy. I feel like with Jak 2, I can just pick up and play that game and just let the hours just breeze by me. There's an occasional difficulty spike, but it always felt great after I got past it. And Sly 2, I have to keep in my mind I'm going to be here for a while. I don't have that mentality with the first game or even Jak 2. The game just kind of drags on for me in the first half because of Rajan, in my opinion, can't really hold himself as a villain for 2 episodes like the Contessa and John Bassan can. And whenever I get past a mission that's giving me a lot of trouble, there's no feeling of accomplishment. It's just a sigh of relief that it's finally over. And after episode 5, the game shows you everything it has, so at that point, you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, and it gets kind of tiring for me. And the story, while mostly liking it, got a lot of things that just bothered me. And help rolls, while most of them are fun to travel through, some of them are just really tedious, or in episode 8's case, overly spacious. I know I've been pretty critical up to this point. I just want to make clear that I don't really hate Sly 2, it's the complete opposite. For every bad thing about this game, I can always list off the positive, like how a lot of these hub worlds are really fun to travel through, especially episodes 1, 2, and 4, because they're the perfect size and it's not monotonous getting from place to place. Also really love Bentley and Murray as playable characters because it gives the Cooper gang more of a team dynamic than the last game, not only in gameplay but in the story too. And I might criticize the story, but I love the character interactions and the dialogue because it has a lot of character development and not make the characters have one personality trait, but the end of the game was amazing too. But the game's bad traits overwhelm its good traits for me, and even then, they don't really overweigh them that much, because I still really like Sly 2. The game aged really well, and I'm glad I can say that, because the game deserved all the praise that I got back in 2004. It took a risk and changed up the gameplay style, and that's not an easy feat, because there's a lot of franchises that still hit in quality when changing styles of gameplay. This game put Sucker Punch on the map into making them the respected group of developers that they are now. Sly 2 could have been Sucker Punch's last game ever, so they tried throwing all of their ideas into this one game as for their final farewell, which I guess could be the reason why this game felt like a finale for the series at some points, but it was a massive success, critically and commercially, selling close to 2 million units worldwide, making it the best-selling Sly game on the console. It even got second place for the best platformer in 2004, only losing the title to Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal. I might not like Sly 2 as much as the first game, but the impact it was left on the series, Sucker Punch, and the PS2 is honestly legendary. God, it feels like these videos are getting longer and longer each passing year. I wonder if the Sly 3 video is ever gonna is it gonna go over like an hour long, but whatever. And if you guys are wondering where Sly 2 ranks in between Jak 2 and Going Commando, I'm sorry, but I feel like Sly had the weakest second game, so yeah, it will go Jak 2 would be at the top, and then Ratchet & Clank Going to Commando would definitely be in between the two games. So yeah, I feel like I made a lot of enemies with this video alone, but I said what I said and I don't regret it. I still really enjoyed Band of Thieves, but for right now, I still prefer Sly 1 over this game. But I feel like 2, like structurally, is the better game, but I just have more fun with Sly 1, but yeah. But now that September's coming around the corner, you guys already know that my channel's gonna be overrun with Spiral content, so we're gonna have to take a short break from the Sly Cooper Marathon, which might disappoint some of you Sly fans, but don't worry, because after all that's done, we're gonna be looking at Sly 3, Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, and so I have a lot to say about this game, but that can wait until October. So that video comes out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.